Guys, it's me again. I just wanted to do a quick video, sort of as an attachment to the last video I made. I think there's a couple of things I should explain a little further, and plus I've heard some opinions from some of you guys, and maybe after I explain it, maybe I can explain it better. You might understand where I'm coming from, and if you still disagree, then we disagree. That's all there is to it. I don't have all the answers, and basically just giving my opinions. So the one thing that I noticed, a lot of you guys, when I talked about statistics and how on the online multiplayer that statistics would only count or should only count if you run 50% or longer races. A lot of you, I'm sure, feel like, hey, that's too long. I don't run long races like that. Uh, we should have stats for shorter races. And the reason that I don't think that would be a good idea. I think online multiplayer has a lot of issues, but a lot of these issues could be improved if you give people an incentive, right? An incentive to race cleaner and run longer races, so that the people that really want a more serious hardcore experience, or just have a better race experience, it gives you an incentive, right? If you have statistics for anyone, and no matter how, if for just 5 or 6 laps sprints, like everyone's running now, then it waters down the stats and it makes them meaningless, right? What's the point? Once you see somebody with 400 wins in like 2 weeks, you'll understand why I don't think it would be a good idea, because it's meaningless. What's the point? If you're just running a bunch of sprints and these guys, they come in, they run careless because it's only a few laps. You're not really investing a lot of time, right? It's just a sprint. So you run crazy. If you get lucky and you're out front, great. If you fall back or you get wrecked early, then you just back out and just start another race. So you'll just see people compiling wins, or just padding their stats. I think you'll see that it's not a good idea to have stats just for any length of race that you run. I know you guys are thinking, well, 50% races are fucking long. Maybe that's too long. But I really believe that anything smaller than a 50% race would water down the stats. And I'm just telling you, it would be ridiculous. I guarantee it. You're going to see everybody with hundreds of fucking wins after a few weeks, because that's all these guys do all day. They just come in, they'll run God knows how many races a day. I don't even consider these races. They're just sprints. It's a wreck fest, a free for all. That's just the way this game is designed, that this is all people are doing. And I think, I've talked about people need a sense of accomplishment, right? And you only get that if there's a payoff, right? When you invest serious time into the game or into a race, there should be a payoff, a reward. So if anybody gets stats for any length of race, then the stats become meaningless, right? But if you have it where it's like I suggested, you only get stats counted towards you on online multiplayer. I'm talking about offline. It doesn't matter what length you run, you should have stats. But online multiplayer, you should differentiate between people that are hardcore and the people that just come in here to run sprints and just drive crazy. I don't think they should be rewarded with stats. You should earn it. And trust me, once you do it, you'll feel a bigger sense of accomplishment, right? Now, I think that's one of the biggest drawbacks of these NASCAR games. There's no sense of accomplishment. You just come in, you run laps, it's a big crazy wreck fest. There's It's just I don't get anything from it. And if you only run these short races, then I would believe, why would you care about stats anyway? That would, to me, that would be something that's not of importance to you. Statistics are for people like myself who really want to experience as close to what NASCAR really is as possible, right? I wouldn't care if I just wanted to run strictly these short sprints online. Honestly, I wouldn't care about stats. And even if I had stats and I had a couple hundred wins, what would that matter? It just wouldn't have any weight to it. There's no stats would be meaningless. And I stand by it. I thought about it. I know some of you guys are like, "Whoa, that's too long." But trust me, once you do it and you get rewarded with stats, you'll feel a bigger sense of accomplishment and you will enjoy the game that much more. Okay? Now, as far as these trolls that just race to wreck people and whatever and back out of a race, if things don't go well for them, they'll always be there. So I'm not saying that this would eliminate that. Okay? And I'm not even professing to have all the answers. But what I do think is this would cut that down severely because I don't see these guys coming into a race that's going to last over an hour and invest that kind of time in it just to back out or just to get a DNF or finish like all the way at the back. When you come into these races and you invest that kind of time, I think, okay, I can only speak for myself, but I would think other people would probably have the same thought process. I'm not going to invest an hour into a race and drive like a dick. I'm going to be careful. I'm going to take care of my equipment. And if there's a move, there's going to be moves that I'm not going to fucking take a chance as I would in a sprint race. Just a couple of laps. Who cares? You're going to dive bomb people and punt them out of the way. I won't do that in a long race. If I'm running a 50% race or more, I'm really focused on taking care of my car, not doing something stupid, and getting a good finish, right? And that's when statistics would matter. It would mean something because I earned it. So you see somebody with 50 wins, you know this dude is a good, clean, serious racer. And he races with other people who are the same way. And that's why I think that it wouldn't be a good idea to get stats if you only run these short races. It just would take all the meaning out of it. Okay? And I keep talking about sense of accomplishment because that's what this game is missing. Okay? That's what these games have been missing. And the lack of statistics is a huge part of that. You have to have a payoff. And it's not just sports games, any game you play. When you invest time in it, it should be challenging, right? But when you achieve whatever your goal is, there should be a payoff. There has to be a payoff of some kind. And in sports games, stats, trophies, things of that nature, championships, when you see your career and you see all the numbers and how many wins you have at each track, have a trophy room. Some people call that grinding and stuff, but there is something to that. When you take that out of a game, it loses its meaning. It's just an exercise. The way these games are now, you just show up, you race at each particular track, and you finish. If you won, you won. You move on to the next race. Nothing happens. And that's why I keep hammering home the point of stats, presentation, content. There has to be more to tie everything together. It can't just be get in the car, run how many laps you run, and finish and move on to the next race. There's no sense of accomplishment, and it doesn't give you a reason to keep going. All right? Now, as bad as the game is, I've said it before, there are ways to get an enjoyment out of it. And what I do, I pretty much play offline. Okay, I can't go online. It's just a mess, and I don't get any enjoyment out of it. But offline, I run long races, right? But I tell you, try it. It's worth the investment. You sit there and you run an hour and a half or however long it is in a race, you do get a feeling of accomplishment if you get a good finish, if you win. Now, obviously, we all have tracks that we dominate. Even when you set this game to the hardest difficulty and you have it on simulation, you dominate. So you can't running a long race at those tracks. You don't. It's not the same because you whip everybody's ass and it's easy. But I'm talking about the tracks that we struggle at, right? We all have a handful of tracks that when you put it on at 105 or at the highest setting, whatever it is, even when you get a decent setup, you still struggle because some of these tracks are hard, right? For me, there are a handful. Uh, New Hampshire, Phoenix. So I ran 100% race at those tracks, and I'm telling you, there are things that you can only figure out if you run a long race and not a sprint. I'm talking about where to let off the gas, where to get back on, how much brake to give it at certain corners. These are little things I'm talking about, just things that you have to actually do it and feel it. It's not going to be obvious, but when you run 30, 40 laps and you're in a long run, in a long race, these are the things you learn and you actually figure out how to be better at these tracks. And I got the most enjoyment right now running Phoenix and New Hampshire, two tracks that I do find a little difficult. I don't have the best setups, okay? There are people who do race online, and these guys, whether it's through helping each other, whatever, they get these setups that they just dominate. But I don't. I picked up these setups early on when the game came out, and I haven't really focused on trying to, I've tweaked them a little bit here and there. And as I've said before, I'm not an expert on engineering as far as, how to tune these cars perfectly. So I'm not perfect at it, but I'm not a novice. But, I try to figure it out. But I'm telling you, I invest the time and I struggled, but I make small improvements throughout the race. And it took me a couple of races that I raced 100%. And I'm telling you, there were a couple of them it was frustrating because of the fucked up caution system. And something, like I said, the AI is not perfect. As even though it's an improvement upon all the other AIs, it still needs work. And I can't stand the way these guys just stay in a pack. Watch any race, and it only takes 2 or 3 laps, and these cars start spreading out. They don't stay in a pack, and it makes it difficult to make passes, and it also makes it difficult just to run a line you want to run. You get forced to run the same, and most of these tracks you have to pass on the outside. These cars are programmed to run a rail on the bottom at most tracks, and they got to fix that. You got to get these guys to spread out and run different lines. And you can't have the same, lap after lap, the same 3 or 4 cars all bunched up together. You can't do anything. That being said, when I finished, I finally won at Phoenix on the hardest setting, and I'm telling you, it just little baby steps throughout the race. That's the most fun I had. That's where this game is at its best. But you have to put yourself in these type of races. You're not going to get that kind of a feeling of accomplishment or enjoyment from running short sprints. You got to invest the time into a big long race and make those baby steps to move up through the field. And something happens bad here and there, but you got to try to overcome it. And I'm telling you, and I finally won at New Hampshire. I never thought I could win there. That track is very hard, but I kind of figured it out, and I made a few tweaks to my setup. And on the hardest setting, I finally won just 2 days ago, and I raced a 100% race, and it was frustrating at points because of all the flaws in the game, but I fucking won, and it felt great, and I just sat there for fucking I don't know what it was, an hour and a half, 2 hours, but that's what I mean by sense of accomplishment. I felt better completing that fucking race than I have ever playing the game. So that's not because of the genius of the developers. It's just that I found that putting yourself in that spot in the game, running that length of a race under those difficult conditions, and fighting through it, figuring out little ways and making baby steps to the front, that's where you have the most enjoyment from NASCAR. That's what NASCAR is about. It's not about running 10 quick laps and just running over people. And that's why I don't enjoy online multiplayer. Now, the suggestions I made about the stats, and you should only reward people with statistics if they run 50% or longer, that's why I stand behind that. And I'm telling you, if you just gave stats to anybody who runs any 3 or 4 or 5 lap races, it would water down stats. It wouldn't mean anything. You know, you should earn that. And when you earn something in a game, any game, it doesn't matter what you're talking about. It should be hard to get it, but when you get it, that's why it feels good. That's what makes games enjoyable. When you make something challenging and then you reward someone when they achieve a goal. That's the key to good games. There has to be a payoff for your dedication to the game. And that's what's missing here, and that's what I think would help improve online multiplayer. There's a lot of work that needs to be done. But when it comes to stats, the game needs stats. And I'm talking about a full comprehensive list. Career, year by year, race by race stats, top 10, top 5, DNFs, wins, everything you could think of that we used to get, that's what we need. And some people have brought up, yes, there was stats in 2011, the Eutechnics, the game. That wasn't stats. That was bullshit. I'm talking about a full comprehensive statistical compilation of everything you do in a game. And every game has stats, even non-sports games. Okay? Look at Grand Theft Auto. They have how many people you killed, how many cops you killed, headshots. It's ridiculous. There's countless stats, right? But in sports games, you can't make sports games without stats. You can't do it. I don't know how. Take stats out of any sports game. Football, baseball, basketball, any sport. Just take the stats out. You would see how ridiculous it is. Okay? Sports are about stats. You can't they can't keep doing this. So I ask you guys, as I always do, please, if you're on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, anything that's attached to 704 Games, any way to communicate with them, please, if you can't forward my videos, forward my ideas, my thoughts. If you agree with them, obviously, if you don't, you may be someone who says this guy's full of it. I don't agree with anything he says. Of course, do what you want. But those of you who do follow me, you follow me for a reason, because you happen to connect with what I'm saying. You happen to agree with most of what I'm saying, and I firmly believe that I understand what makes a good game, especially a good NASCAR game. And I can't do this by myself, and I've had people who have forwarded my videos or my message in their own way, and I thank those guys, and I keep asking you to do it, because we can't let up on these guys. We got to keep telling them what we want. We're consumers. We're the customers. We're the ones spending our hard-earned money. So if they want us to be loyal customers and get our money, they should give us what we're asking for, within reason. I've never asked for anything that was out of the question. In fact, 95% of everything I've ever suggested is shit we used to get. So I'm just asking for shit we used to have. Give it to us again. There's no excuse not to have it. And yeah, I'm going to keep repeating half the shit that I say because these are important aspects to the game, and they're missing. So I can't do this alone. I ask you guys to help, and we got to keep hammering this point home to these guys. It only takes one fucking person at 704 Games to see any of these videos or see somebody's comments on Twitter or Facebook, right? It only takes one, and to look at it and say, you know what? That sounds like a good idea. Why aren't we doing this? And maybe they can bring it up to someone, one of their coworkers, or one of the people who make these decisions, and say, you know what? These guys are asking for stats. Why don't we have fucking stats? That's kind of odd. And yeah, you know what? That would be cool. You know, it would add a sense of accomplishment and help give you more immersion into the game. We want people to feel like the whole point is that you're in the world of NASCAR. So you want the game to be as realistic as possible. And all of these things will help. And there's no excuse not to have it. I can't believe that an entire company is constantly pushing out these games year after year and they don't get it. So I'm still perplexed at how this stuff can go on and on. But I'm going to keep hammering the point home, and hopefully somebody, the right guy, gets the message. One other thing I did want to bring up, I've had people in the past bring up iRacing, and you should join iRacing, you should do this. And as I've said before, I think it's apples and oranges. You know, a console game and iRacing are two completely different things. iRacing is a service. It's great. It's a superior experience, but it's not the same thing. And I enjoy offline gaming. Okay, online gaming is great to a point, but when it comes to NASCAR games, I have a hard time believing we're ever going to get to a point where you can truly get the same kind of experience online that you do offline. The whole point of the offline uh, aspect of the game is that you're immersed into the game as a NASCAR driver, right? And you're signing contracts, you are building a career, and you're racing, 39 other cars. And it's a controlled environment. So it's a lot closer. If you want to experience NASCAR, you're going to get a lot better of an experience offline than you ever will online. Online is just a gathering of people driving NASCAR vehicles at NASCAR tracks, but that's where it ends. There's nothing else about it that says NASCAR. These sprints of people wrecking each other, that's not NASCAR. So I just wanted to address some of the things I talked about in my earlier video and really try to explain why I feel the way I do about the stats and why you can't give stats to people for just anything. And if you're online, right? Offline, yeah, you get stats no matter what. But online, I would make it if you run 50% or more. And yeah, I know it's long for many of you guys, but I promise you, if you invest the time and you run a long race like that, and you get stats for it, you're gonna feel a bigger sense of accomplishment, and you feel rewarded, and you're gonna say, I don't want everybody just fucking getting wins and top fives for what? For running 5% race online? Fuck that. Some of you will still disagree with me, and that's fine. But that's how I feel about it, and I hope that I was able to clarify that for you guys. And maybe I changed some of you guys the way you're thinking about the game, and maybe you'll see it differently. So thanks again, and as always, I would appreciate if you guys get in touch with these guys, Facebook, Twitter, forward my video or videos or my message, I don't care who gets credit for it because I'm not here for that. So even if you want to just suggest it, that's fine. All I care about is that at the end of the day, they get the message and it somehow seeps its way back into the development. And in the future, we get better games because we deserve better games. NASCAR has been, it's got to be one of the worst uh, treated sports in video games, right? Every other game, they really get deep into it and they really flesh everything out. And NASCAR games, it's been well over a decade since we've seen a decent attempt. So let's try to get the ball rolling. All right. So I'll see you guys. Hopefully they release some serious information that I could really talk about, and so I'll do that when I get a chance. But what do you guys think? I'm curious to see, did I change any of you guys' thoughts on stats, and maybe you see it a little differently, or maybe you feel the same. To each his own. Hopefully you guys kind of see where I'm coming from. All right, so I'll talk to you guys later.